everybody, and welcome back to 3-2 Brew. Today you're going to be tuning in here to the final episode of the Goblin Guide project. I do apologize for the delay on the episode. I was ill the week prior and I pretty much played no games. It was just basically 10 days of me just loopy and overall not feeling well, sadly. So to spend some good quality time with my wife, got some good rest, and was able to get back out for the New England Regional, which happened today. Actually, I'm recording after it. So let's go over it. A lot to cover here. Goblins. That's what we ended up running. What we're looking at right now is the 1.9 deck. This was my previous iteration of the deck, which had relatively decent success. We have 1 tomb and 4 ports, and then we had a Flash of Defiance in the sideboard. It's one of pretty much the only major change from where we ended up going into the actual games with. This deck was good. I enjoyed it. The ports, the 1 tomb just didn't feel like enough, but I will say after playing with 2 tombs, it felt like too much. I don't know. It's kind of a weird room to try and, or weird area to try and like walk on. I do actually think that 4 Rishanen port and 1 tomb is the correct call, but that's a whole separate issue. Yeah, this is pretty cool. Flash of Defiance was something I learned about from one of the New England monthly meetups. Players can't block with green and or white creatures this turn. It's a great way to punch through a who's the big bugger, a Phantom Neshoba. It's also a great way to punch through a Terravore. But regardless, this just wasn't quite what I wanted. And I read some more stuff in the New England, or just in the Premodern Discord, specifically on the thread for goblins. And a lot of people were very high on City of Brass. So I ended up going with a City of Brass, 2 Ancient Tombs, and 3 Rishanen ports. I cut 1 mountain to fit the extra City of Brass. I'll come back and talk about that after we do kind of a recap here. Nothing changed for the creatures. They stayed exactly the same. But in the sideboard here, I added in a Final Fortune, which unfortunately did not see any castings today. But it did show up once or twice just in the incorrect position. This is sort of a flex spot. I don't fully know what this should be. Maybe it should be another Naturalize. I'm not sure. Maybe like, I don't know. But I gave it a shot. Didn't find a situation where I had it in hand and it was able to work. There was multiple situations where I wish I had it, but I just simply didn't. But yeah, this is pretty much the same run through. I really dig this setup for when it comes to playing with goblins. Goblins as a whole, I'll get to in kind of a final recap at the end, talk about my future with this deck or what have you, but this is what I ran with. 4 Lackey, 4 Fanatic, 4 Pile Driver, 1 Tinker, 1 King, 1 Sharpshooter. That's our kind of little creature package. 3 Flunkies, which I did think felt very good in the deck. 3 Gem Palms, which were very good. 2 Matron, 4 War Chief, 4 Ringleader, 3 Siege Gang. I love the creatures of this deck. Before we go any further, there will be some slandering of goblins most likely through this, and I would like to hear you argue against me in the comments if you'd like to. But the cards in here I love. I love Siege Gang. I love what it does. I love what Lackey does. I love what Ringleader does. All of it. I like the art too. I don't know. It's a very difficult deck for me right now. I have a love-hate relationship with it, but this is what we ended up running with. And I have another report here of me just going through like what ended up happening round to round. So I'm just going to go through it. I did get there a bit late, but the event started late, luckily for me. So I was able to get a bit of time in. Our first round was against Jay, who actually played at the previous regional. They were on Green Red Zoo. The games were so close. I just wasn't able to get there. I got really skunked game 3. I believe I went play, draw, play. And the post board, I kept, I think, like, it was a really fat hand. It was like a 3-drop plus Siege Gang and like 5 lands. And I was like, you know what? I'll draw into action. Not a big deal. I get a lot of good work out of it. You know, like, we should be good. Nope. I drew like 5 straight lands and just flooded out. I was unbelievably like tilted in my brain because after so much mana struggle with this deck, and they have pyrokinesis, they just completely wiped up everything I did and beat me down. So lost to Zoo. Zoo's a cool deck though. If anyone's ever interested in trying it, I do have it on my YouTube channel here. But there's a lot of sweet lists out there. I like their innovation with the slivers as well. Very, very cool. Jay is a fantastic opponent. They're always very nice. I couldn't find my notebook. I did eventually find it in round 3, but they let me some paper and just I cannot speak kindly enough words about everyone in this format that I run into. I obviously only play in the New England area really, but just the nicest folk. I really can't get over it. Like, I just love everyone I play with. They're so nice and they're friendly and they want to chat and, you know, talk all sorts of nonsense. It's wonderful. So, yeah, lost the first round. Green Red Zoo. I should have taken it. This is the one match where I look back and I'm like, if I would have mulliganed better, you know, I probably could have got there. Just didn't. Just didn't make a good first game decision, and that's gonna happen. Nothing I can do about it. But besides that, we also had second round here. I went up against an extremely cool opponent named Noah. I got to talk to Noah a bit later on in a couple rounds. They were on blue-white control, no standstill. I got him game 1, just like Blackie kind of ran him over. And then game 2, I got cooked. And then there was a super grindy game 3, but still ended up losing. Just didn't go my way. I had a situation where I was getting beat down by their board. They had multiple factories up, and I believe in Angel as well. Can't remember exactly, but I think they might have had an Angel up, and they just didn't. You know, I was in a position where I had to go for broke, like it was like all or nothing. No, yeah, they had multiple factories up, and I had a siege gang and a goblin lackey in my hand, and it was pretty much like I needed everything out right then and there, or I was gonna die. And what they ended up doing was, I think I was at 6 life, and they had a fairy conclave and 2 of the Mishra's factories. I think I had just a goblin pile driver out, and I dropped a siege gang, which did not get countered, and I dropped a lackey. And I was tapped out with like a naturalize or something in hand, and they just wrath of God in me. Never found my Caller of the Claw. If I would have had Caller, I had the opportunity with the mana, I believe, since I did end up flinging a goblin, to actually like properly be able to flash in Caller of the Claw, and I would have gotten like 8 bears or something stupid. But you can't win them all, you know? I spoke to Noah. Noah's deck sounded really cool. He completely cut the standstills and just went raw action. Basically, his only creature was man lands. He had decrees, but he also had angels as just like his raw top end. It was a true blue-white control deck, no still. Relied on impulse and factor fiction just to continue to keep the engine going. I really liked the way that deck played. I'm not really a control player, but that was it tempted me. You know, it looked at me. It was like, come to the dark side. But I do like that. Noah was a really cool cat. I like talking to him. Very, you know, insightful. I did tell them to check out Cataclysm. They weren't running Cataclysm. And I was like, if you're only running basically 4 creatures outside of your decrees, if you slam an angel and then follow it up with a, you know, a straight up and down whatchamacallit, and force them to just sack it, follow up with a blanket on it. I literally just said it. Cataclysm. They're cooked. Like everyone's goose is cooked. So yeah. Tough loss. We were boarded for it. Like we had the sideboard to fight this, but just didn't get there, sadly. And then we took the third round. We were in the bottom half of the bracket here, and we took up U-Naught. Someone was just on a blue Naught built, and we just ended up running them over. They were playing a suboptimal, like they had peak and stuff. I think it was missing a couple of pieces, in my personal opinion, from like what I normally see. They did have Parallax Tide and such. Maybe the peaks are new tech, I'm not sure, but we ended up beating them, and I believe we were on the draw for that match as well. We took first game, lost second, and then won third. I did get super lucky finding, I think in game 1 and game 3, both my naturalizes, and I tutored for a Tinker the one, and then I just found a Tinker in the second or in the third game. but I ended up taking it. That was my first win on the day, and I was very, very, very excited for that, and a bit shocked. Opponent was very nice. I chatted with him a couple of times after that. He ended up dropping and doing the side event, but yeah, first win against the day was against Blue Knot. Very surprising for me. I'm gonna go back here because I'm an idiot, and I have this right here. Round 4, I played against a really, really, really cool band Horn of Greed Oath deck. Its top end was, I think, like a Chroma, and then whatchamacallit of the Night. It's a 6/5 flyer. Spirit of the Night, maybe. I can't remember off the top of my head. Really, really sick brew, but I was able to squeeze out a 2-1 win. I probably could have had it in 2, but I screwed up. There was a single moment where they pointed a swords in game 2, and I was low life. I had 2 mana up, and they pointed a swords at my. I was deploying a second. Would have been summoning sick without it, but I had deployed a. They were completely tapped down on creatures, and I deployed a second pile driver, and I had War Chief out, and they ended up pointing a swords at the War Chief, and without like thinking, I just let it resolve and put it away. But I had the cycle and enough. I had 5 creatures on the board, and their creature was a 6/5 flyer, where I could have cycled my Gem Palm and picked off their flyer and survived, and probably been in a position to just straight up win then. But you can't win them all. Nothing you can do about it. I still ended up taking the match. Really cool deck, really fun. Got to chat with that opponent. I really enjoyed it. And just overall, I think my game record and match record got screwed up. Don't worry about it. But yeah, it was super, super fun brew. Super cool deck. Liked what it was doing. I did have a really funny moment where I forgot a Horn of Greed trigger, and I passed turn. I was like, oh, I forgot Horn of Greed. And the opponent's like, no, you have to draw. And I was like, are you sure? Are you sure about that? And they were like, yeah. I was like, all right. I drew. And at this point, their board was disgusting. They had 2 chill. They had 1 exploration and 1 oath out. And I didn't have anything on the board. So they basically told me, like, you need to draw, and went back to my turn, and I'm pretty sure I just Tranquil Domained. I drew a Tranquil Domain off the top. I've been sitting there waiting for it. Drew Tranquil Domain, fetched, got myself a forest, tapped 2, cast Tranquil Domain, just wiped their board clean, and then played a matron and tutored up, and just, I think, believe went on to win. But I just thought that was kind of funny. Like, I respect that they really wanted to play to the T. I was cool with just me screwing up, missing the value. Like, win some, lose most. I can't get it all. I might have even fetched it away. Who knows? But yeah, ended up scooping a Tranquil Domain off the top. So kind of funny situation there. Really nice opponent. Really cool deck. I love seeing like inventive brews. I think that's just a fantastic thing in this format, and you do see it quite a bit. Let me zoom in a little bit here. So we are 2-2 now, and then we go into the 5th round, and we're sitting decent at 2-2, and just ran up against an extremely good Blue Tide player. Like, they were just on it. They had everything. They had all the counter spells. Just absolutely ate away my lands with Dust Bowl. Like, I got just my goose straight up cooked. Match 1, we just ran them over. Or game 1. Game 2, we got just cooked. And then game 3, just same thing. We got squeezed. We got a bit more pressure on them that game, but just squeezed. Ended up losing 1-2. I want to note there was not a single 2-0 or 0-2 all day. It was all 2-1 and 1-2. If I was going anywhere for a win or a loss, I was taking at least one game with me, or my opponent was taking a game, which I think is an indication of just really, really good Magic. Not from like me being good or whatever. Like, I'm not saying it in that sense. I'm saying it in the sense of like just good games. And I'll talk about that a bit more at the end, but yeah, took a tough loss to Tide. That completely took me out of any hopes or dreams for like making the playoffs, which was okay. I still wrapped it out here because I wanted to make sure there was a 7-round event, 108 people. I wanted to make sure that I played through to the end and tried to get a winning record with this deck after 9 weeks of play. So I went into round 3 and played against Jimmy from the Tour Mods Crypt Keepers and gave me a sticker, gave me an extra sticker to give to my homie. Jimmy, if for some reason you watching this, super nice cat. I loved our games. They had a 4-drop. They were playing White Weenie and just some nail biters. They had this like weird creature I never seen before. It was a 4-drop and it had protection from all damage. All like not like basically you had to move to new spot removal or something. Disgusting. It was a 4-mana 3/3 flyer. And just first one game he hit me with Cataclysm and just cooked me. Couple of his misplays is not good sequencing on my end, which took us to game 3. In game 3, he cataclysmed me and I just turbo bounced back. Was just like racing back from, I believe they had a Primarch out, or it was the that flyer again. They had Pariah in the flyer game too. And I ran out of lands to cast my Naturalize to get it off, but I had no way of dealing with it. So game 3, it was really interesting because game 3, it was tight. I had a ton of lands and I had like just oodles of like goblins and stuff. I only had one pile driver, I think. I don't think I could have beat him, but he ended up beating into me for 7, taking me down from 14 to 7, and then cataclysming, leaving his 3/3 flyer with protection from damage. Which ultimately ended up giving me 2 more turns. So it was very interesting because I got to keep my Goblin War Chief and then a mountain. So I was playing out creatures after that. I believe I played out, I forget what it was. I think he swung in and then I played out a lackey, hit in, dropped a siege gang. So I had it wide, but I only had 1 land. And then I was sitting at 1 life. And it was a really, really like I had 2 because I had a couple of ringleader activations. I had 2 pile drivers. And I just straight up had the win if I rip because he kept his bird back to block the one time, and I was at 1 or something. I forget exactly what he did, but he deployed a blocker. It was a mom. He deployed a mom. And I needed to be able to beat in with 2 of my pile drivers. So it was a situation where I had no lands and I needed to rip. I was at 1 life, so I specifically needed to rip a mountain. That was my only out, and I top deck a mountain. And I slammed double pile driver and just turned the board sideways, and I think that I hit for like 23 or something. I kind of felt bad because Jimmy played this so good. Like he had the sideboard tech. It was pure White Weenie, no red splash, nothing like that. Just got so lucky that I ripped that raw mountain off the top. It was a pretty decent outer, but still could have been Carclusion Force, which wouldn't have got me there. Could have been a multitude of things. So, yeah, I'm very blessed for that, in a sense, and I'm very excited that I was able to get that win. It was a really well fought match. I love having just good games of Magic. Win or lose, they make me the happiest I can be. They're my highest level of utility. Jimmy as an opponent was an extremely nice cat. So just good conversation all around. I believe we're sitting at a 9-8 game record right now with a match record of 3-3. At this point, I will be transparent. My wife asked me to go pick her up a pliable on the way home. I had to make a game time decision. I had to go for the pliable, make the wife happy, or I had to stick around and play out for a positive record. I stayed around. I told my wife, I love you. I'll pick you up some Dairy Queen on the way home. But I've spent 9 weeks trying to get this deck to work for me. And this is kind of the creme de la creme. So I stayed around for round 7, and gosh darn am I happy. I played against an extremely nice opponent, Nick. He was on a very, very spicy white-red goblin brew. He was packing warmths. He was packing plows. He was packing Armageddons. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. I was on the draw here. Took him game 1. I just raw gambled game 1. I only had 2+ drops. I had the mana to keep it going. But basically, if he dropped turn 1 Lackey, I was cooked. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to run the gamble. That's what I thought. No turn one lackey, ended up just tempoing them out. Hitting the lands when I needed to hit them. I put them in a position where they couldn't waste me. That's the biggest thing I feel like with the goblins decks that run wasteland. You put them in a position where they just can't, you can't let them waste you. And I just was ringleader chaining and whatever. Game 2, I just never ended up hitting the mana I needed. I believe they removed an early lackey from me. And I sat there. I literally had the playset of goblin ringleaders in my hand when I scooped, and 3 mana. I was so tilted. So yeah, that was a bummer. But I kept a super bold game 3 hand. I was on the play, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just go for it. I'm gonna make them have the swords. I'm gonna make them have the fanatic. Looked at their hand. They ended up keeping. They had the turn 2 play, but they did not have a turn 1 play. So I went, lackey, go. And they went, all right, mountain, go. And I went, all right, you know, I actually dropped land first. I was like, all right, Richard Import. That was my other land. And actually, I drew that. I drew Richard Import. And I swung in, hit lackey, dropped Siege Gang, and just ported them. Just kept them off the whole time, was hitting ringleaders. I just ended up running them over. Very, very happy. That was a super bold game and a keep. But deck ended up coming out. I believe I ended up overall 11-9 and a 4-3 match record. So we went positive on the day. I don't know the exact position we played. It's probably like 40th or something. I'm not really sure. A lot of people. I just want to note, for anybody who's watching, if you're ever looking to get some kind of community set up, please reach out to one of the Duress crew members, Nick or Billy. They run fantastic events. They raised a bunch of money for charity today. And they're also just really nice people that come through. Can't speak highly enough about everybody I meet there. I haven't chatted with Nick quite as much, just more, sparse communication. Nice guy. But I've chatted with Billy quite a bit, and he's a fantastic individual. So I really like the Duress crew. I like the events they put on. If they ever need help with anything, I'm always glad to lend a hand. And very, very, excited for everything. Ended up 4-3, so I went positive. Talk about the stats then, before we get to final conclusions. Overall, so we have our raw stats here. I do have a bit of week 7. It looks really skewed. I only played 2 games because I was sick. So for week 8, we ended up at 56.25%, which isn't bad. It's a pretty good record. It was a decent amount of matches. Version 1.8, 1.9, and 2.0 ended up all at about 60% win rate. 2.0 was a little bit of yesterday and the day before testing, and then really today. We ended up really nice. I mean, look at the trend here. Win percent by deck version. We had a 60 here, we had a 60 here, but these were way less games. We just continued to climb. Obviously, we dropped, but this is a positive trend line. And you can really see it by win percentage by week. This right here is when we cut out some of the nonsense. When we dropped the toolbox and went over, we were a completely different beast from there on out. If you added this into week 8, because really these two are combined, you're looking at like a 60% win rate. So I think that this deck I don't play as well in paper, but it's something else to talk about the recap here. I wanted to go against what we have on the Duress crew matchup comps. This is pulled from MTGO data primarily. When I was building my sideboard, the reason that these 4 are highlighted is because, well, before my win against Stifle Knot today, I was below rate on Stifle Knot, The Rock, Replenish, and Terrageddon. And I really, really, really wanted to have a board built for them. So that's where a lot of my board logic came from. It's why you'll see a good amount of hate for the graveyard, for blasts, and Caller of the Claws to fight off of sweepers and stuff. So didn't play Terrageddon, didn't play Replenish, and didn't play any Sir Rock, The Rock, nothing. Just Stifle Knot on the day. So can't win them all. It's all right though. We ended up doing pretty decent. That's kind of the major archetypes. The running total that I have here, I had 134 games. So out of those 134 games, 53 were against just raw Bruce. Everything else was again something that's in a category. I had 72 wins, 62 losses on a 54% match win rate, which is pretty darn good. And this even includes the periods where we were horrendous, which was the majority of it. So not really here to complain about it. I will post this online and share a link in the comment descriptions down below. If you want to look at the data, I'm just going to upload this raw file. I'll probably delete my notes because probably some cussing in there. I don't ever want to see. And there was one note that said something like, you know, kept the bad hands, I had to poop or something. But I was tested for MTGO. But yeah, I'll upload it. It's all here. I just want to cut back and let's talk about the future of this deck. Goblins for me is a love-hate relationship. I got better towards the end, but I kind of hit a wall with this deck. And I remember when I first started this is because Fran said no one ever tries to master goblins. I get it at this point. I do. Like, I actually get why people don't. Let's talk about like how the deck feels to me. The deck feels very boom bust. The Lackey into Siege Gang feels great. If you get an unlucky hand of like 4 lands and you end up keeping it because you're like, I'll draw into it, often you don't. Or you draw what you really don't need. You want to play out curve on this deck most of the time, unless you can drop Lackey and back it up with a Rishit import. The Ancient Tombs felt great to support stuff like Matron and Ringleader. Ringleader is the glue of this deck. It's kind of like Fact or Fiction for this deck. So you need your Ringleaders to stick. But my real issue comes with the sideboard plan. I have yet to find a sideboard plan that lets me feel like I am doing something to really give me an edge to win. And I'm going to quickly just open up in another tab here. I haven't touched it in a while, but my Dead Gael. Let's talk about the sideboard here versus that. Tormod's Crypt is to negate other people from winning or having an advantage on us, whether it's Turbo Combo or Terrageddon or the Rock. Zoran Orb is to help us stabilize against Sly because we have 2 Ancient Tombs. Pyroblast, Red Blast is normally meant to stop what the opponent is doing, not protect your creatures. That's what I've learned. When you board these in against Standstill, you're not boarding them in to like proactively beat a Blue Blast normally. Unless it's like a Siege Gang. Even then, not really. You're boarding these in to fight off Standstill itself on the stack, or you're fighting off Pyroblast. That's it. Final Fortune's Flex, don't count it. Tranquil Domain feels good, but it's not really giving you a whole lot except against Replenish. It's just making it so that your creatures don't automatically die to stuff like Engineer Plague. It's very reactive, and it doesn't advance your game plan much. It just makes it so you can develop your game plan or stop their game plan. The sideboard's primarily disruption, and it's not disruption with an edge normally, and that very much aggravates me. The only thing I can say it's disruption with an, or anything that gives like real value is Caller the Claw. It's a great sweeper. Just like flash that in post sweeper and you just go to town. I'm a huge fan of it. I like Caller the Claw a ton. I think this card's amazing. It does advance your plan. When you drop all your stuff and you have 3 mana up and they say, oh, here's a Wrath of God, you go, all right, here's a Caller the Claw. And you just nuke one in and you say, GG's. So, but like, let's look at Dead Gael. Out the sideboard here, it's a little bit different feeling. Circle Protection Red is literally, it is reactive, but it's also not. It's just straight up shuts off someone else's game plan. If you continue to hit land drops, just COP Red completely turns off the other person's options to play the game. Tormod's Crypt, another thing. Just, it's the same reactive thing, but not as big. Disenchant, again, a bit more reactive. Sabo's Web, though, does just completely shut off what most people are doing. Nothing you can do about it. Just shuts it off. Engineer Plague shuts off a deck. Infest shuts off most creature-based stuff. Paris will just shut stuff off. Right here, you're just advancing. It's a lot of one-sided wipes. Infest isn't exactly a one-sided wipe, but it's a pretty darn close one. With the Negators, Muse, and Massacre. Perish is a one-sided wipe. Plague is just literally like locking decks out of the game. Sabo's Web will completely shut stuff down. Shut down land strategies. Just good night, go to sleep. Disenchant is a little more reactive. COP shuts down red decks and Tormod's Crypt. So you have 6 reactive, and these are all very proactive. You go ahead, play out your elves. Here's a Perish. Like, I'm just going to beat you down with an Exalted Angel. Don't worry about it. So, yeah, it just feels like when you come out the board here, you're just cooking people. And I kind of dig that. But regardless, my future with Goblins is, I'm not going to lie to everybody, after, what was it, 134 matches, I'm at a point with this deck where I think I'm just kind of done with it. It doesn't feel like I need a deck that I want to play at a competitive level to feel. It feels like there's too many misses. And I just don't quite get where I need to get to with it. And it's a bit saddening. I want this deck to be fun. I want to enjoy it. I want to pick this deck up and play with confidence, but I can't force it. It's not there. I don't think that this deck is that good. And it kind of pains me to say that, but I don't see the upside in a lot of this deck. Yes, you can boom bust. Yes, if I was better at tutoring, I could do it, but I'm not. I'm not toolboxy built. I'm not good enough to tutor properly all the time. The sideboard doesn't advance my plan. It just stops other people from doing their plan. So, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it gives me enough. I don't know if it's like I'm more of just a black mage or what, but I overall don't love the way that this deck feels. And I think I'm going to end up selling it. I don't know what I'm going to do with the money, what I'm going to buy, if it's going to be shrimps or not. I've thought about shrimps becoming, going to the dark side, but after all this time in 9 weeks, I can confidently say that Goblins is not the deck for me. And it sucks. I want this deck to be fun. I want to enjoy it, You'll hear me kind of tilt off in the coming league. I was coming off a sickness, so I was a bit mad that I was rusty, but I apologize. I don't want to get mad playing this deck, but I know how this deck should work in my brain, and it doesn't. It doesn't translate to how it actually plays. And that's kind of a bummer. But yeah, this has been the Goblin Guy project. We didn't end that on the highest note. We ended very neutrally at a 4-3 record at our big tournament. I'm going to run a similar project. I don't know exactly what the deck is. I'm going to probably be deciding that tomorrow so I can get a jump on it. I'm currently sitting between Dead Guy Ale and the Rack. I think I'm going to go with Dead Guy Ale because that's just not an archetype explored enough. And I think that there's a very good deck there. And I think if you master it, you have some opportunity. So just tossing that out there. I dig that deck a lot. But yeah, I'm sorry, everybody. You came on this journey and it didn't end with a big W or nothing. It ended with me just saying I don't love the deck. And I know that's probably frustrating for some of you who've sat here and watched every single one of it, but I also can't lie to you all. I don't want to sit here in front and say this deck's fantastic. I'm going to be continuing to run this. This is a go-to for me. It's not. And I think honesty in this type of stuff is very important. So everybody who watches understands like, oh, maybe it's not for me. Why is it not for you? Maybe it's not for me. But nonetheless, I hope everybody enjoyed. I really do. I like doing this type of stuff with a long testing period and trying to get everything set up and all of that. I'm very, very excited just to try another deck archetype in this manner. One that I've played before and have some familiarity with and enjoyment. This was a bit frustrating mentally from time to time just because I would get very down on myself after I did terrible swings, and what have you. So I appreciate everybody coming along for the ride for this. It is a bummer that we didn't get as good of a result, but we're going to run another one. and we're going to pick a different deck, and I'm going to run through it. I'm going to put my heart and soul into it like I did for this. I'm going to try and find the best possible list, and I'm going to bring it to a pre-modern regional, and I'm going to play it. I hope they have one, even with LobsterCon going on. I'd be kind of bummed if they didn't. Maybe I take even longer for this one. Maybe I take 2 months or 2 regionals, and I take the first one's a testing period, and the second one's like what I'm trying to spike hard. I don't know. I really don't, but I'm going to continue to try this concept. So if you have any feedback through the series of what you like, what you didn't like, is there a better way I could structure it? Let me know. I'd like to know your thoughts, your feelings. Yeah, I just want to thank you all. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the likes. I also want to shout out Jonathan, one of my homies, did extremely well with the Blue-Green Madness deck at this regional. He ended up 5-2, bubbling out of top 16 at 17. Ugh, I felt terrible for him. Extremely nice cat, good homie of mine. Just want to give him a shout out. I'm super stoked that his list ended up putting up some really good results, and he kind of found his deck. Madness is one I do want to check out at some point, but dazes are not cheap online. So I've been on the fence with him, but yeah, big shout out, Jonathan. Yo, congrats, homie. I'm glad you did well, but leave me your thoughts, your feedback on this. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for the comments, likes, whatever. However you want to interact with me, I love it. I love chatting with you. Give me your thoughts on these type of, projects. How would you like to see them different next time? And without further ado, this has been 3-2 Brew on the final mission report for the Project Goblin Guide. So until next time, cheers.